Hey guys, what's going on? It's been a while, but I have been reading. I got 6 books to share with you here today. Decided to take a break from sci-fi and instead read some classics. 3 Penguin classics, 3 NYRB classics. We'll see how they compare. Can I say there's sci-fi influence in any of these? Not really. Maybe only in this first one. The Slynx by, I should have read the author's name before I did this, Tatiana Tolstova. On the back, it calls it a postmodern literary masterpiece. So that usually reads to me as this isn't going to make a lot of sense. The plot is going to be all over the place, but hopefully there's a cool concept, which is almost exactly to a T what I thought this book was. It's set in a post-nuclear Holocaust, what you assume to be Russia. And at first I thought it was going to be this adventure story because the main character is going on and on about which mutant tribe lives to the south of them, and the barren wasteland that's to the west of them, and the rotting kingdom to the east of them. But after that, you stay in this guy's small town for the rest of the story. He takes you through a normal day where he's hunting mice below his house because that's the currency they use in this world. And there's scary and strange creatures out there in the gross radioactive wilderness, one of them being the Slynx, who is, actually now that I think about it, if you've seen Napoleon Dynamite, he draws a picture of a liger, and that's what I imagine this character to be. Sorry to inflict your mental image with my own if you do end up reading this. But it's a creature that'll sneak up to you in the dark and get some kind of stinger on the back of your neck and then bleed you dry over a long, long period of time and leave you terrified and helpless, which I think was the main character's mental state in this world. And if that plot summary seems to be all over the place, it is, because this book is all over the place. The pacing was definitely off, but despite all of that and despite not being cohesive, it had a lot of really interesting ideas and really colorful ideas. I was really into the world. I was really entertained by the world. And I liked the main character. He's a very likable, gullible, naive guy who you're rooting for. And he gets dragged through a bunch of different people's intentions. He briefly becomes one of the people in power and becomes almost instantly corrupted. I'm sure it's talking about communism. I think it's saying that communism is impossible, like the ideal form of it. But again, a postmodern literary masterpiece. So I bet there's a lot of different interpretations of this. It's got a lot of interesting language too. It has its own kind of slang, a lot like A Clockwork Orange, which I thought was a really cool aspect of that book. All right, next we got Our Spoons Came from Woolworths. I did it again. Barbara Cummins. Woolworths is what I imagine to be like Walmart. It's supposed to mean our spoons were cheap. Our spoons were not fancy. I like this one a lot. If you've watched some of my other videos, you know I like Betty Smith. At least I like A Tree Grows in Brooklyn and Joy in the Morning. I don't think she's written anything else. Maybe she has. And this book was a lot like that. The writing style is very similar. They have the exact same format where it's this first person, very close POV character. And they're talking about the high and low points over a long period of time, the majority of their life. This was a lot grittier, though. It's a grittier Betty Smith, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but there were higher highs and there were lower lows, and the lows were pretty rough. It's about a woman born into poverty. She has a child unexpectedly with an artist who doesn't really want to have anything to do with the child. Her family is kind of embarrassed of her. I think she married into like a rich, snobby family, but she is of the lower class, so they never really accepted her. She has it rough, and some rough things happen to her. Some unimaginable things happen to her. Very entertaining, not nutritious, not a lot of deep thought there, but entertaining for sure. And the last NYRB classic, Germs by Richard Woolheim. This was a scary one. I have a number of NYRB classics, and I was reading the back to decide which ones I was going to do for this video. And this one talked about childhood trauma, how these are the germs you get when you're young that are contagious, that stay with you for your whole life. Which was a terrifying thought as a new father trying to not inflict any of my germs onto my children. So I kind of shied away from it, but then it brought me back because this is probably the time I need to read this most. So even though it was a scary idea, I dove into it. And germ can also mean just to germinate. It's a positive term. This is his autobiography, mostly from childhood He's a philosopher from Germany, so he's got a lot of thought behind the defining moments of his childhood. And again, being a new father and going into this thing, when you go into something important, you try to look for other people that have done it and see, okay, what worked for them, what was good, what was bad. And I didn't really think that was possible going into fatherhood, but this is as close as I could possibly come. The guy has like a photographic memory. He remembers some of these things in such detail, at least he writes about them in such detail. And again, it's the high and low points of his first like 13 years. The defining moments of his childhood. So I was very intrigued by that, which helped a lot because it was pretty dry. It was really slow, as you would expect it to be with the subject matter, although he certainly did have an interesting childhood. And he makes it clear what happened to him in childhood and how it translated into adulthood, how it stuck with him, you know, the germ that he caught and what it caused. Some of the things that are pretty obvious. His parents were very strict. They didn't give him responsibility at all, and when they did, it was super specific. One of the first things he talks about is getting the privilege of wiping his own butt. And his mother informs him how many times to use one side and then to fold it, and then how many times to use that. Very detailed. And you can guess how that translated into adulthood. What I really liked about the book is that he never criticizes his parents for any of this. There's no ill will. I think he accepted them for who they were and knew that they were doing their best, which is probably the best message I could have possibly gotten out of that book, the safest one at least. Okay, those are the NYRB books. This is the bonus book, The Cat Who Saved Books by Suzuki Matsukawa. I use this as a palate cleanser in between the NYRBs and the Penguins. This was one of those books that's aimed at people who read. The back calls it catnip for readers, and I think that's pretty fair. It's about, you guessed it, a cat who saves books. It's a talking cat that visits a young scholar and says, hey, you got to come with me through time and space so that we can stop people from doing morally bad things with books. Kind of enters the midnight library, if you will. So they go and visit these three different people. I think one is hoarding books for himself. Another is eliminating words from books so that they're shorter, so that people can read more. And I think the last people they visit are publishers who keep publishing only what sells, and they see the spiral that it's taking readers and books down the same path, the most easily accessible path, but they don't do anything about it, and it really takes it to an existential level. Ironically, I think this is a product of the publishers doing that because it's trying to hit readers. There's a lot of different references to tea and talking cats, and you're hitting the demographic. You know, you're kind of doing the same thing, which kind of bugged me when I was reading this. But I certainly ate it up. I finished it in a day or two. It was the perfect palate cleanser. Read it like a Ghibli movie. Like imagine the characters in that kind of sense. That really worked for me. Because it is like a Ghibli movie. It's very soft, very calm. A young central character who is struggling in school but very bright and motivated. And then at the end they slap you across the face with the moral of the story after, you know, lightly delivering it early on. All right, first Penguin we got is The Three Musketeers by Alexandre Dumas. You know I love The Count of Monte Cristo. I do have to admit this was an audiobook. I listened to this book. I did not read it. And it was difficult as an audiobook because you have to keep track of a lot of different things that are going on. And this guy definitely got paid by the word. I mean, Count of Monte Cristo is bigger than this, but there is so much unnecessary dialogue. And this is probably sacrilege to some people. But it definitely dragged in parts. And you have to stay on the ball to get all these characters in line and know that this piece of jewelry being delivered is a secret message from this person that says don't drink the poison that this person has put in the wine. So you got to stay locked in. And of course there were times that I was lost and I had to look up what was going on the internet. Twice I think I did that, which isn't a great sign for a book. I did just like the idea of learning about the Three Musketeers, who they were, what their names were. And the banter between them was entertaining. It's a good revenge story. It takes a little longer to find the hatred in this one. Count of Monte Cristo was a bit up front, but it got there. It took its time, but it got there. Okay, next, The Moon is Down by John Steinbeck. Hadn't ever heard of this one, and it is apparently the most widely distributed piece of propaganda ever. And I wonder how they did that in World War II. Did they airdrop a crate of books onto a town and then eventually got distributed? And it goes against the whole idea that I have of propaganda, which is some big, colorful, loud image that demands your attention and gets its point across as quickly as possible. A book does not do that. You gotta sit down. It's not a long book, but you gotta sit down for a couple hours and, figure out the themes. But apparently it was effective because there was a lot of accounts later on of people that had read it and were inspired. It's about a Nordic country, they don't tell you which one, but they're being invaded by a fascist nearby nation. The parallel is obvious. And this town has a coal mine, so the people come in, they destroy, the 5 National Guard people there, and they force the townspeople to work in the coal mine. And it's kind of an inspirational guidebook for a country or a people experiencing that and how to most effectively organize and rise up against your oppressors. And it does it really well. I distinctly remember the setup scene in this book where you meet the villain and the hero, the mayor of the town and the general of the invading force. And it had a lot of weight to it. I vividly could picture it in my mind. It was well done, and you really feel like you're reading a piece of history. You imagine yourself in one of these countries reading this book, and you think it would be really obvious when to rise up against your oppressors. They're forcing me to work in a coal mine. They had a very clear inciting incident, but I think it could be hard to know when, especially if you're in that pot of water that's being increased by 1 degree every day. There is no inciting incident. I would recommend this one to everybody. It's a quick read, again, thick with history. I'm a fan of that, and a good story in general, just by itself. And there's no more books here because the last one I let my dad borrow and he has not returned it yet. It's called Sagittarius Rising by Cecil Lewis. It's what I assume to be true story of a fighter pilot in World War I for the Royal Air Force. He signs up right when he graduates high school. He's underage, but he doesn't care. The Army doesn't care. And a couple months later, he's flying this experimental aircraft under enemy fire. It's pretty insane. Imagine what I did after high school and just imagining this alternate lifestyle, which is pretty unimaginable. But he does it. He goes up there, he takes enemy fire, he shoots down enemy aircraft. His first role is to just defend the balloons. Apparently that's how they did it in World War I. They sent a balloon up and then that would be able to see the outlying landscape, and they had planes go up to protect them when they did. He obviously has a lot of really cool, interesting stories to tell you. It's kind of like your grandfather that went to war and you're listening to his stories. My dad has a bit of a World War I aviation obsession, I would say. So a lot of the names of the planes and the visuals were in my head, which probably helped. And maybe the best part about the book is its description of the natural world. Obviously, he's up there way high in the sky, and those are some crazy views you get from the cockpit. And he does a really good job describing it. And the copy I had was used, of course, and the person who read it before circled all of his description of the natural world, which normally I don't like. Normally seeing other people's writing, it takes me out of it. But this was just another person, alongside me reading it, being like, hey, did you see that? That was pretty good, wasn't it? And it was. And I don't know if it would have stuck out to me as much if it wasn't all highlighted like that. So there's 3 Penguin classics, 3 NYRB classics. If we do the math here, I think the Penguin classics have it. In truth, they serve a very different purpose from what I can tell. Again, small sample size. The NYRB classics are a bit more obscure. You're probably not going to recognize any of the titles, but you might strike gold. More commonly, you'll strike something that was different, something you wouldn't have read if you had read the full synopsis. Whereas Penguin classics are recognizable names, books that you may be able to talk about with other people in your day-to-day life. Books that are more widely regarded, books that are more, finely curated. So it makes sense. You probably will get, on average, a better experience with a Penguin classic, but you never know what's hiding in obscurity. And that's what I got for you today. Thanks for sticking with me with these long gaps in between videos. Takes me a little longer to read books these days. So it goes. See you next time. Bye-bye. Oh, and I almost forgot. Last video, I showed you this shelf in progress. And here it is. Still no front door.